I don't need to remind anyone here of that. So some of you may not be aware of who the DCC are. I'll say a little bit about that. Well, we're a global centre of expertise in the curation of digital information. We've got a focus on helping organisations of all sorts get maximum value from the data that's used in research, the data that's generated in research. And as well as offering services like DMPonline, we also offer training, consultancy, we organise events and online services I mentioned, such as DMPonline. And we also take part in related funded projects that help explore or achieve some of those aims. Recently, that's included Skills for EOSC, Fair Impact, Fidelius, which is focusing on the preservation of information used in research, and Fair for Health. We work openly and collaboratively in almost all we do. Our code is open source. Our training resources, for instance, are also openly licensed. And I mentioned events as one of those, and as a result, I'm almost contractually obliged to mention that our annual conference is taking place in Lisbon next year in February 2027. That's actually open for submissions now. You can put in papers, demos, workshops, lightning talks, posters. Who knows, perhaps at least one of the ideas we're hearing about this morning will end up resulting in one of those forms of presentation at IDCC next year. Before moving on, some of you will be aware of our dearly missed colleague, John Pinto. John had been working with us on DMPonline for over 10 years, and he was most recently our primary liaison with a wider development community of DMP roadmap. John was really a source of calm, wisdom, and support, I think, particularly for new staff, and he's missed by all who worked with him. And the effects of so much of his work are going to be visible to us for many, many years to come. So an outline of the three talks we've got today, but I'm sure our speakers will give us much more detail on each of these. So the first is looking at the issue of feedback. We already have the facility, certainly in DMPonline, in some other services, of providing or soliciting feedback on a draft data management plan. But at present, that functionality is really built around an assumption that that feedback comes from a central source, perhaps from the research office, perhaps from liaison folk in the library. But it's been suggested it'd be useful to have a much more targeted sort of feedback flow where individuals could request feedback from people in their school or people in their department, and that the system itself would know how to and where to direct that request for feedback to. So we'll be discussing how that might work and whether it's a good idea later this morning. And then dynamic DMP templating, moving beyond conditional questions, which is already a feature that's been used by colleagues in Finland, onto branching onto nested structures and much, much more. I'll be particularly interested to see what is being proposed there and how it might be useful to others. And finally, a talk on overlaying global organization questions on multiple templates. It's often the case that as an individual organization, there are questions that you always want to ask of your researchers in any data management plan, whoever it's being, the work is being funded by. And a suggestion, wouldn't it be handy if you could simply define those global questions and apply them to all of the templates in one action rather than having to do so individually. So I hope I've captured the essence of what each of our speakers is going to talk about. Here's the agenda in more detail. Once I finish, we're moving on to the first of those talks on feedback functionality. We'll then be hearing from our colleagues at the University of Helsinki about dynamic DMP templating. There'll be a brief comfort break then between 11:45 and 12, and finally that presentation on the global organization questions and a wrap up from my colleague Diana. So I hope that's all clear to everyone. And if so, it just remains for me to stop presenting and to hand over, I think, to our first speakers of the morning. Dipshika and Richard, are you with us?
Hello,
Yeah.
yes I am.
Hi.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm going to hand over the sharing of this then to Diana and hand over the session to both of you. Do go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Richard Grimes. I am one of the data stewards at the University of Delft. And my colleague Deepika here is also a data steward. She works at the library on our university. I work at one of the faculties. You can see the big building there in the picture is the Faculty of Electrical Engineering, Mathematics and Computer Science.
In the dataset.
Is someone trying to ask me something?
Sorry, I think somebody may have the microphone on and sometimes sound comes through. Can I ask you all to switch your microphones off so that Richard can talk? Thank you so much. Yep. Richard, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so the faculty in the building there is where I work, the Faculty of Electrical Engineering, Mathematics and Computer Science. But I am sort of here to talk to you today about the changes to the feedback functionality that we would like to see implemented in DMPonline. And this is something that you might have seen crop up a few times before at these meetings. I know a couple of years ago we presented here about one of our solutions to this problem that we have in the sort of the assumptions of the centralized data stewardship team, which I'll sort of go into a bit more detail now. So at TU Delft, we have a fairly large data stewardship community. So we have the library, which has central two central data stewards, which handles day-to-day operations of DMPs and things that don't fit into any of the faculties. But if each of the faculties themselves have at least one data steward, and there are 8 faculties in total, and some of them have 2. So we have a fairly large team, which is coordinated centrally, but individually we all need to take responsibility for our own data management plans and not those of someone from a different faculty. So essentially what happens in our workflow in the DMPonline is that a researcher will make a DMP, they'll request feedback, which will get sent to the library, the shared inbox, and then it'll be someone's job at the library to then forward it to the correct data steward. And this is manageable for smaller amounts, but when you start getting hundreds of DMPs, thousands a year, then you need to have a better solution for this, especially since something that can be sort of automated, which is something that we tried. So we worked on a script ourselves to leverage the DMPonline API to try and take the pressure off of the data stewards at the library. And we created a system which we call DMP Notify, which basically reads the inbox from the data stewards team and also the API at DMPonline to determine when someone has requested feedback on their plan and then forward it to the correct data steward. Now, this works fairly well. Like we talked about this, I think 2 years ago at one of the data stewardship or one of these DMPonline meetings. But over the years, as things have changed in the ICT landscape, things have been a lot more difficult to keep this system operational. So some of the problems that we face are sort of twofold. So we have, first of all, identifying the DMP's faculty of origin, which is in of itself a difficult problem because we have different systems set up. So we have DMPonline user system, and we have our own internal email and user system there. But also knowing when feedback has been requested has been a difficult issue. So when we're talking about like identifying where the DMPs have come from, like which of our users have asked for feedback on their plans, we need to make sure that we can get this to the correct data steward. Now, this isn't this can be a bit of a problem because DMPs can have multiple contributors. So we can have multiple different people working on the same DMP. Sometimes it's just one person taking the lead and we have some supervisors that are occasionally pitching in. But sometimes we're talking about a collaboration between lots of different researchers, sometimes from different faculties. And so then this raises the question of how do we actually determine who needs to receive feedback, who needs to review this DMP, who is the sort of main applicant here. And with the DMP online API, we had some utility to this, like we could see every single user that contributed to a data management plan, but the exact contributions isn't given, and the amount, the order that you receive these users in is not always the order that of like priority, so it's harder to filter exactly who is contributing the most and whose data should review this. And there are some ways you can work around this. You know, there is the data contact in field. So if you go onto your contributions tab and you add someone there who is a data contact, you can designate someone that will become the person that the system will assume is the owner of this DMP. And by default, this is set to the original creator of the DMP. So for most of the time, this works. However, because of the data contact is someone that you can add via email address, there's no sort of user checking or validation of the email address. Sometimes when a researcher would come to this tab and they would add in their data contact, they would assume that the person who would be dealing with the data would be someone like their data steward or the data steward shared inbox. So then we have a situation where the DMP actually has no person that we can trace back to, and we just have us as the people who have seemingly requested feedback. So in one sense, that you know, it does at least get sent to the right inbox because they put in their data steward. But this isn't a very reliable way to go forward. Previously, also, the users' email address could be completely different on DMPonline to what they are in the faculty. So even tracking back within our own databases, matching those up to people user accounts in our university versus on DMPonline could sometimes just not be possible at all because we didn't have their email address. Since August of 2025, this is no longer the case, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. And eventually, we sort of ended up with a situation where in our DMP template, we just ask a question: which faculty do you belong to? And then this works great because most of the time, 90% of the time, we have people using our template, and we can sort of encourage people to do that so we can essentially push this to be the solution. But of course, this doesn't work when people have to use a different template. If they're doing a Horizon Europe application, for example, if they really want to use the NVO template, which is the research organization for the Netherlands. So this will occasionally see people falling through the cracks. We wouldn't get notifications forwarded correctly, and then this reduces trust in the system as a whole, which is not something you need as for a notification system. Then the second problem we have was knowing when a feedback has been requested at all. So currently there is no way of knowing from the API whether or not feedback has been requested. The only way to know for sure is if API, if you receive an email from the DMPonline saying that this person has requested feedback. Now, previously we've been accessing our email inbox for this, but that stopped working a couple of years ago due to security implementations from our ICT team. So then we moved on to using a very different workaround using the Microsoft Power Automate solutions that we have. But even those started to break down as last year more hardening came into place, and our current setup is only being done on a exception basis from the ICT team. So we would like a better solution going forward. So yeah, late last year we approached DMPonline to discuss possible solutions to this, and we've come up with a pilot for a new targeted feedback request workflow. So the goal here is that we want to extend the existing functionality in DMPonline to provide more flexibility for organizations that have a different setup to the standard centralized data stewardship team. Now, we know that there's a few other organizations that have been interested in this. Like I've certainly seen a few times people with similar structures to us or have distributed support would benefit from this. So this is a way of implementing this within DMPonline itself rather than having to rely on a third-party script, which would be the case if we just simply change the API. So we have come up with a couple of proposed changes. The most important part is allowing organizations to register multiple email addresses that can receive feedback notifications. And then we ask our users to indicate which email address a feedback request should go to. In a lot of cases, there's the users themselves have an idea about where they need to send this. In our case, they know that they should send it to their data steward of their faculty, and this is sort of removes the difficulty in trying to infer which user should be sent where by just explicitly asking them. So the way that this is planning to be done is we are going to extend the schools and departments feature. So if you go onto DMPonline currently, you'll see that there's an option to list various departments or schools within your institution. You can give it a name and abbreviation, and this doesn't. You can assign people to it as well. It doesn't really have very much integration at the moment, but this seemed like a natural starting point for implementing additional or distributed data stewardship responsibilities. So a proposal here is that we will be able to add reviewers to a department using email addresses of a DMPonline account. So we'll be able to add in this new field that we'll create that will, you can send emails every time someone from this department requests a feedback request. It will get sent to this email address or to the users that you list down below. And then this essentially means you can have a centralized place for all of these different departments. Now, of course, we'll have to also add a way for users to assign a DMP to the department, which will be done in the project details tab. So there'll be a drop-down menu or something similar where users can select which faculty or which department they would like to receive this feedback request. And then finally, DMPs will have the plans tab will have a complete redo. So instead of having two separations of the every single plan listed that required feedback up top, then down below we have the table of other plans. The proposal is that we'll change the plan, the page just be this table at the bottom, but we'll add in some drop-down filters so that we can apply things, like looking for plans that are just awaiting feedback from a specific department, or just all departments, just requesting feedback and things like that, so that we can actually have a bit of a dashboard for data stewards from different faculties. And this should hopefully be a lot more manageable, especially because different departments may have different workflows. So how they use the feedback request completion messages might be different, and this allows a lot more control for the individual data stewards to work how they want to. So in this case, this would result in the DMPonline essentially taking the bulk of the distribution here. So instead of us being responsible for forwarding this to the right department, instead of us having to have a script, this will all be done on the DMPonline side. DMPonline will forward it to the right data steward and also to the shared inbox as well. That can be maintained, and this can also all be managed by the organizational admins. So this still remains in our control, but is shifted over in terms of who actually has to maintain the structure. Now, because also the email addresses that are used in DMPonline have to be from the institutions now anyway, this also simplifies that a great deal, so you don't have to track individuals' email addresses as well. So there's a lot of things that we wanted to keep in mind when we're doing this. So, of course, feedback requests are essential parts of DMPonline and the whole process for managing DMPs. So we wanted to avoid disrupting any existing workflows for institutions where the current system also works. Because we don't want to implement something that then forces everyone to change if they don't have to. And we also want to keep it simple for users themselves. So when users are going through and they're creating their data management plans, we don't want to add too much additional burden on them in terms of administration and what they need to do. So currently, we do have a single mandatory field, but if we can keep it to just that and users don't have to go and sign up to certain departments and things like that, that is quite important for this new feature. And keeping changes in scope. So, of course, whenever we decide to address a system as fundamental as the feedback request, and we make some changes as substantial as this, we're going to uncover things that could be potentially changed for the better. And we have to keep in mind that these changes should be kept in scope of the original problem. So while there are many things that we can change, and it would be good to be aware if there are any things that need to be changed in the future, definitely good to keep an eye on them. But we want to be able to keep the scope limited so that we can at least get started with these initial changes. As I said, this is an opportunity. So when additional changes are in scope and feasible, we should try and do that. So, for example, on this next page, I have shown some of the things that we're doing. So, the admins, the changes that we're proposing would be an opt-in feature. So, an organization has to opt into this a different way of working, and if you do opt in, you'll see the drop downs. You'll see this new plan page. If you decide not to and you continue as planned, then there shouldn't be any changes and that you need to be aware of. And the changes to the plans page will make it easier, we hope, to manage requests via the DMPonline web UI. So although this is a substantial change, it's fairly simple change to make, and it should improve the overall flow of the management. So yes, at this point, I think I have reached my summary page a little early, but in summary, we have this proposal for changes to how the system works. Essentially, organizations will be able to specify multiple contact emails for each of their departments. Users will indicate which department should receive the feedback when they're creating their data management plan. And there'll be a new plans page to help manage this for the data stewards and the research support team. So if you have any questions, if there's anything I missed, if your organization does anything differently and you feel this would be useful for you, or you would like to learn more about some of this, then we have quite a bit of time for questions. Yeah, I will open the floor up to the chat and to Deanna.
Thank you very much, Richard. Okay, so I'm going to start with a general question, and the general question is, do you think you'd benefit from this feature? Perhaps you can put your comments in the chat, and also note that we have a document. I'm going to add the link again in the chat so that you can add questions there as well. We'll do our best to get around to all the questions. So which universities would benefit from this feature? Anybody? Okay.
Well, perhaps another way to look at it is,
Yeah.
does anyone actively see the opposite? Does anybody think, no, this is going to make life far too complicated, or I don't want this? I mean, I can certainly see how it benefits some people, but what you'd also want to make sure is that it isn't a disbenefit to others.
Okay, so Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences says we definitely benefit from this. Another question that I would like to ask is, did you understand what was being proposed? For example, okay, so I see Crystal Sharp from Leiden University of Medical Center saying this would be a useful option for our institute in the near future. Okay, so I mean, it's good to see this encouraging feedback. So I'm just going to take a step back for a minute and say that the feedback feature was always on our plan for improvement. We're aware that in the past you have asked for things like, better visibility for feedback that is being provided. Many of you have said, that you didn't particularly like that the feedback was included in comments, and perhaps it should be somewhere closer to the question. So we're aware of that. And we are, we will be working on that. What this feature, as you can see, is proposing is the feedback to be more targeted, to go to departmental data stewards. Is there anything in Richard's proposal that left you a bit puzzled? For example, Richard says that there will be one new mandatory field for the end user. Richard, perhaps you could clarify which field that is?
Yeah, so the whenever someone creates a new data management plan on the project details page, currently there's, I think, maybe 1 or 2 mandatory fields, which is like the project title and maybe the not the abstract, but there's a couple, 1 or 2 mandatory fields. Here, if we're using this system, in order to be able to make sure the data management plan goes to the right person, there would have to be a field which is like a drop-down menu of all different departments. Perhaps this can be auto-filled based on the user's preferences, so that this doesn't have to be mandatory filled in by them, but there would have to be an answer to this question. So it would be a case of, do we choose sensible defaults, or do we ask the user every single time which faculty should manage this request?
Okay, so to enable the plan and the request of feedback to go to the right department, it's the end user who would have to select the right department for themselves.
Yes, that is the current plan.
Right. Okay. Is there anything additional that the organizational administrator would have to do in this particular new setup?
So they would have to assign email addresses and users to the different departments. So in the school department page here, they would have to add an email address that the feedback request would go to. If you have a school department that has no email addresses associated with it, or there's no users associated with it, then it would just default to the shared inbox that you have currently. So if you do decide to you only want some departments to be given specific requests, you can do that for only a few departments, and the rest will continue on as normal to the shared inbox.
Okay. Was that clear? Does anybody else have more technical questions? I see that Miriam says, we currently don't make use of departments, but we have supporting staff at different locations and therefore also different mail addresses. Would we also benefit from this feature? Can a user select from multiple feedback options? Miriam, perhaps you can unmute yourself if you're happy to do that and explain what you mean by select from multiple feedback options.
Yes, of course, I can. We have supporting departments in different sites at our institute. So yeah, actually, I think our users wouldn't know in advance who to consult. So, but our feedback is provided from multiple locations. So our users are not assigned to departments, but the support sites are, so to say, different departments. So can it also work this way, that a user can select a department that they want to have feedback from?
Yeah. So the idea of the drop-down menu in the project details would let you choose any department. Like even if you're not a member of it, you can choose whichever one you want. And I suppose also in theory, there's no reason why these things that we call schools or departments have to be schools or departments. They could be like internal teams. So you could have like you could make a department that is your research software engineers, and your one that is your data stewards, and one that is your other support teams like privacy or something like that. And then people can select who they want to send that request to. As far as I know, you could maybe have like you say you add like for example like a privacy team to this drop down menu, and you could send it to the feedback request just to them instead of sending it to the whole team at once. Or you could yes, so currently the users themselves choose which department it has to be sent to. But how you organize those departments is up to you as an org admin.
Okay, thank you.
There's another question, and this one for Crystal. Do you know if it would be possible to obtain the new feedback status and department fields via the API as well?
That is not currently something that we have in the proposal. If it would be useful to other organizations, I'd certainly like to hear it, because yeah, like I still think it would be useful to have these flags set in the API as well. But that was just for my specific use case. So if there are other people with this other use case that would still benefit from that in the API, that would be good to hear from.
Yeah, I can't see why we shouldn't do that. We are revising our APIs. I don't know if Glenys will want to step in and comment at this stage, but we are revising our APIs, and at this stage we could take the opportunity to look into the feedback, retrieving the feedback as well.
I can just add to that by saying yes, Diana. I don't. I think currently we do have details like this available in the API already, but then with this new feature, that would be a very good idea to add it with the API. So yes, we will keep that in mind.
Okay, I'm glad you're enthusiastic about this. Any further questions? Okay, I'm glad. It seems that from a technical point of view, this is quite clear to you all. One thing I wanted to mention is that we could take the opportunity to improve the interface a little bit at this stage, because I'm aware that institutions such as TU Delft have a long list of plans waiting for review at the very, very top of the list of plans for their organization. So perhaps we could look into that as well while we're working on this. So people will have to scroll and scroll and scroll before they get to the list of plans. If it's, I don't know if you have the interface in your picture, the interface at this stage. Another thing I wanted to say that up until now, we have worked on new proposals by ourselves, in the sense that we got proposals from you, the community, and then we went ahead, wrote a feature specification and came up with something. What I was thinking that perhaps we could get you more involved, particularly since you have lots of very good ideas. And for example, produce small working groups for each of the features that we will be working on that would contribute at the feature specification writing stage. So would anybody else like to get involved into this and perhaps bring in ideas while we're writing a feature specification for the targeted feedback request? That means we work with a team. We would work with Richard at TU Delft, and it wouldn't involve massive writing. It would be just a matter of contributing new ideas and tweaking features. You don't have to have a think about it, and we'll ask this question after the meeting. And if you want to get involved, that would be great. I'll discuss in our team. Sorry, there's a comment that has just come in. So Teresa Kieselbach. Okay, so I'll just say, Gizem, you say I'll discuss in my team as well, UMC Utrecht. So I guess you mean you'll discuss what they want to get involved. Is that correct, Gizem?
Yes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll just read this comment. Crystal as well, thank you so much. Also discuss further with my team. That's Morgan Taylor. Thank you so much. I'm glad to see the interest. There was a question from Teresa Kieselbach. I'm going to read out loud. Thank you, Richard. This is great. As for our organization, we currently do not have faculty-based data stewards that could give feedback on data management plans. Added to this, the use of email addresses to share inboxes is discouraged for security reasons. In summary, at this point, we would not be able to take advantage of such a feature. Nevertheless, it might be very useful for other organizations. Thanks, Teresa. So, as Richard pointed out, it would be an on-off feature. It's up to the organization whether they switch this feature on. You don't have to automatically use it. You mentioned security reasons. Would you mind to elaborate on this, or it doesn't have to be during the meeting? You can contact us afterwards. Elisa? I think it's okay. You can get in touch with us afterwards.
It also doesn't have to be a shared inbox. It can be individual people's emails. So you could then specify an individual for each department.
Yeah, thanks for that, Richard. Okay, I'm glad to see there's a lot of interest in getting involved in this. So UMC Utrecht, Lund, I can see Radboud, and Yasmin, sorry, remind me. Remind me your organization, Yasmin.
So it's same as Richard's Antipsychotic Delft.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm glad to see the amount of interest. If nobody has any further questions, I propose that we take some time back. This presentation was meant to finish at 11 when the next talk is meant to start. We can't start earlier because people are anticipating the presentation for University of Helsinki to start at 11. Unless you have other questions, I guess we can stop here and come back at 11. Is this okay? Okay.
Yeah, I think that works.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Shall I
Okay.
share my screen? I'll try.
Sure, you can start sharing your
Yeah.
screen. Hello, everybody. So we will now get a talk from Eemeli Anttila from University of Helsinki. He will give us an overview of the proposal for a dynamic template. It's not just machine action, but it's also more dynamic than what we currently have. It will have additional structures. I'll leave to Eemeli to explain this for you. So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. Diana, good day, everyone. I presume you see my screen at the moment. My name is Eemeli Anttila, and I work as an information specialist in the University of Helsinki data support. And I'll give you a brief introduction to our dynamic template, which we have been developing at the University of Helsinki over the past year or so. Here you can see the contents of my brief talk. I'll first tell you about the basic principles of our template and how it was tested. Then I'll briefly describe the template structure and its technical features, and the highlight of this presentation will be the template demo, as I believe it will be the most useful for you guys to see template in action. Let's start with basic principles. What are the goals of our dynamic DMP template? First and foremost, the template is designed to be user-friendly. And this is the main reason why we have chosen to make it project-specific instead of focusing on individual datasets. Well, we do have some questions at the level of individual datasets. They are in the minority. The focus is on the project's specific level of each research project. The template is designed to ask only things that can be utilized in practice. This way, the template serves both the need of researchers and our organization. The aim of the DMP is to prevent risks and make users aware of certain things, but it is not meant to replace other documents needed for research projects. The prototype or first version of the template is created using this RedCap survey web application, which we happen to have in the University of Helsinki.
we have also started the process of giving this dynamic template to DMP which is the Finnish equivalent of DMPonline. However, as some of the technical features required are not yet available on DMPonline, the prototype or the test version was created using RedCap. As one of our main goals was to make the template as user-friendly as possible, we thoroughly vested it with researchers and data management specialists. These user testings were made using this observation method, which means we simply met with the researchers and asked them to create a DMP using the test version of our template. And simultaneously, our team members observed how the researchers acted with the template. Then the observations were written down, and afterwards all the necessary amendments to the template were made. These tests confirmed that our data model and the template are pretty easy for researchers to use, and they also serve the needs of real research projects. Now I'll quickly run through the structure of our data model. In the first section of our template, we of course ask background information for each of the project. Then we have this rather surprising question. We ask the user to answer whether the research is purely theoretical or not. Because if the research is purely theoretical, a DMP is not needed since no data is expected to be used or produced. If a project doesn't involve data, researchers, they just need to justify this fact somehow, and then their DMP process is complete. But then if the project has data, the template will let the user to continue. Second section of the template deals with the integrity and accuracy of the project's research data. And as you can see here at the beginning, we don't ask the researchers to list all their datasets at this stage. Instead, we go straight from the background information to the integrity and accuracy of the data. The user will be asked to list their datasets later in the section about data opening and archiving. Then the template has some questions also, of course, about ethical and legal compliance and required agreements. These are rather important questions. Other required agreements, the template has one question regarding documentation and metadata. Sixth section deals with storage and backup. Then in the section 7, which deals with opening, publishing and archiving of the data, we ask the researcher to list all their datasets the research will open, store for the verification period, and or archive. So this is the section with the most dataset level questions. Then section 8 has questions about data management responsibilities and resources, and in the end of the template, the user has also a possibility to send a support request to our data support team. Then
Eemeli.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We don't see your screen.
Have you seen it at any point?
We see it now. We see
Okay.
it now.
Okay.
While we're here, there was somebody with a hand raised. Andrea, are you okay?
Yes, I wasn't sure if we were supposed. It sounded like Eemeli was demonstrating the template IRL, and I could still only see the PowerPoint.
Yeah. It was like that's how it it should be, because I'll demonstrate the template in more detail later after I've gone through all the templates. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thanks.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much. Sorry for the interruption. You carry on.
No,
Sorry.
no worries. Then the template features. Most of the questions in the template are either checkboxes or radio buttons. And of course, the template, it evolves based on the answers given by the user. And for example, if the user answers yes or not yet determined when asked about the usage of data originating from humans, more questions regarding the processing of personal information will be shown. This feature differs from the question conditions which are available in the DMPonline, because in the DMPonline, answering in a certain way will result in some of the following questions being removed. And the branching logic we need for our data structure, and which is also available in the REDCap at the moment, works by adding more questions, which makes it possible to use this feature with multiple answer checkboxes also. This also makes using the template effortless for researchers, because as you might know, many researchers, they don't necessarily start filling in the template from the beginning. So it would be confusing if some questions which the researchers might already have answered suddenly disappeared. We have also this thing called nested structure in our template. When the user is asked about the datasets to be opened, they can add as many datasets as they wish. And this means that we have a set of questions in our template for each dataset, and users can answer these as many times as needed by simply clicking add another dataset. And this creates a hierarchical structure for the information. So we have, if a user wants to add many datasets, they have the same questions all the time they answer they add the datasets. Ideally, the template would also incorporate a feature that allows admins to determine how each answer is printed in the final DMP document, making the DMP easier to read for funders, for example. Because, of course, it might be easier for a funder to read simple prose instead of questions and checkboxes and radio buttons selected. So in the ideal situation, a researcher would create a DMP by just clicking different kind of boxes, and then the actual DMP would print out as a prose document. And as a matter of fact, this is possible with REDCap, but unfortunately, we haven't had time to utilize this feature yet with our test version. Okay, now it should be time for the template demo. How much I get time? I get plenty of time. Yes, great. Just a moment, because I have the. Sorry. What do you see? Do you see my my browser now?
Yes. Yes, it's okay. Okay, Maria, do you see the browser? I think you are the one having difficulties.
What is happening?
I can see it now. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
let's
great.
proceed.
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is our first version of our template. This is the landing page, which you can see. The template can be used using a web browser. Here we have some guidance for the user. Then we ask the background information. We ask project title, creator of the DMP, creator's email, etc. We have also added a field asking a project research plan here, so a researcher can add their research plan just by uploading a file. Then, if we roll down this first landing page, there is this first real question of our DMP template, which asks, or it says that the research project uses or produces research data or material. And if the researcher or the user answers no, the research is purely theoretical and we don't use or handle any research data or material, then the form asks they to justify this fact. But if the researcher answers yes or not, sir, the template will let them continue. I hope you see the next page of the template, which is integrity and accuracy of research data. Do you? Yes, great. So yeah, now we are in the real core of our DMP. First, we have a question about the integrity and accuracy of the project's research data, and most of the questions we have organized this way. We have just different kind of statements, and then the user has to select all that apply to their data. So the DMP can be created just by clicking different kind of checkboxes. In most sections, we do have also this kind of open fields where researchers they can add more detailed information about their own research project, and this I think this solution has been great, at least when we tested the template, because now while we ask these things from the researchers, they don't start rambling about things that are unnecessary. They just they start selecting the right checkboxes, and then they somehow elaborate on the options they selected by writing down something here on the open field. Next section is about ethical and legal compliance. Here we have also checkboxes and also open fields. And here we have this thing we call branching logic. The template asks a researcher if the researcher or if the research project uses data originating from humans. And if a user selects no, then it's all right. They can just continue. But if the researcher selects yes or not yet determined, they will get more questions regarding processing of personal data. Yes, this is the way it goes. Here we have also open fields. Here we have also the branching logic in the section about required agreements. First, we asked how the rights of the use of the research data produced in the project will be agreed. And then we ask if the project will transfer research data or material to another party, or if the project will use research data or material obtained from another party. And yet again, if the researcher or the user chooses yes or not yet determined, they will get more questions. They have to answer on where the data or material is being then transferred to. And then we also have this question appears also, which says, since the research project will transfer or obtain data material outside of the University of Helsinki, the following actions will be taken. And then the user has to choose the right options regarding their project. Okay, let's move on. We have one question about documentation and metadata. This is rather simply because we just ask what kind of data documentation practices the research will use. And the user can also, they can write something about this if they want. Then we have some questions about storage and backup during the research project. Yeah, there's plenty of questions regarding this, but because this is not about technical features, I'll move on to the opening, publishing, and archiving of data, because this is the section which incorporates the nested structure. Here we ask regarding the opening and archiving of the project's data, what actions will be taken? And if the data will be opened, stored for the verification period and or archived, more questions appear. We ask the user to list all the data sets they are planning to open, store for the verification and archive. First, we ask dataset name and brief description. We can write here like dataset number 1. Then the user chooses the size of the dataset and they choose whether the dataset will be opened or archived or both. Then we ask the name of the service, the dataset is opened, stored for verification or archived. We can let's choose University of Helsinki data back here. And then we ask the planned storage period in years. And now we have another question, add another dataset. If the researcher wants, and most research projects of course do, they can add another branch of these, the same questions. So the same questions will be asked concerning each of the dataset the research project has. Yeah. If we go on to the next page, then here are just some questions about data management responsibilities and resources. These are rather simple questions all. And here we have also this support request page where we ask if the research needs support with some of the issues which are handled here in the DMP. After the researcher has filled in the form, they can send their answers to the data support, and after they have sent them, they can also download the DMP as a PDF form. The PDF form, I think now it's of course empty, but it looks quite nice at the moment. But this is a feature that can be done with the DMPonline, of course. Yeah, thank you. I think it's 20 past, and I don't have I don't have anything to say anymore. Does Meg, Mari-Elisa have something to add?
Oh, no, thank you. I'm here just to help you with the questions that we might get.
Yeah, so maybe it's time for the questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Shall I stop sharing, or do you? Maybe I'll continue sharing.
It's up to you. You can keep it sharing in case people ask questions. So we already have Andreas wanting to ask a question. Andreas.
Yes, I'm just curious as to like the general how researchers at your university perceive this DMP in general, because a lot of the questions I believe our researcher would feel was very, very specific. So how do you balance between asking very specific questions that researchers might not know about yet very early in the process, as opposed to having a more free text DMP, if you would like?
This is a good question. Does Meg want to add some? I think one of the things here is good instructions, because one of the things I cannot show you is our instructions. We do have instructions coming up, which are really like each of the options here in the template is somehow instructed or and defined. So yeah.
And one of the goal of our DMP template is that researchers doesn't need to read any additional guidance to get an idea what kind of things you should think about when you think about data documentation or ensuring data quality. So you will get the list of options to make them to realize what kind of things you should answer to this. Because with the empty boxes, you can talk about very general level which doesn't apply to your research at all. But with these options, we show the level that you should answer to these questions, because we don't want to get answers like we are going to follow the laws and legislations because it's obvious. But we need to know more detail. So we ask things that we need to know to be able to help and help research projects and identify the gaps. Then we can offer our support to these research groups that don't understand questions. It makes it more visible than just empty boxes where you can copy paste something.
Okay, thank you.
I have one quick question for you, Maria-Lisa. Perhaps you could clarify at which point in the project, in a research data management project, is this template to be filled in? Because I get the impression this is a very specific template for you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's very specific. It's we use this in several points of research projects. For some, it's when you are applying, when you are making an application to Ethica board. For some, it's so for Ethica board, you need to know quite detailed what you are going to do with the data. Then we use this with our biggest funding, which is Research Council of Finland, and this DMP needs to be made after you get a grant decision in 6 weeks after you can get the decision to get granted. And we also use this for EU funded projects because EU doesn't require a certain template to be used, so you can use any. And this is also designed for that. But it's not so. It has been. We have got feedback that this is so much easier template than the open box version, because here you get the options. If you don't understand the word, you can put your mouse over the word and you will get the Hoover text to explain the concepts, and you can skip those which doesn't apply you, and most of the questions also have an free text where you can describe even more detail what is your plan with the topics. And after the researchers have written, and if they read these options, they quite often want to very specifically clarify what they are exactly doing, because they think that these our options are a little bit vague and on a high level. So they actually want to clarify to ask us in more detail, even those researchers who said that they don't know anything about research data management, they don't have no training or no skills, but when they see the options, they understand the context, that it's not something research data management which is something which is not included in normal research project, but this is something that every research project needs to think anyway. So one of the persons, researchers who were doing this with us says that, yeah, I was thinking that this is about research data management, but it wasn't. It was only the important questions that I really need to think about before I can start to do my data collection. So I like the options that clarifies for researchers that this is not something that some extra. This is something that you should always think about this before you can start collecting data. And that was the feedback from the researchers, that this is so easy to fill out, so much easier than the empty boxes. And it was like from every researchers that we followed when they, so our tests were following, the researcher was filling out the template while Eemeli and Ina and Milla, our research project, the project group members were shadowing them while they fill out the template. And there wasn't, the feedback was that this is quite easy. Of course, there are some difficult words like checksums. What is checksums? Nobody knows. But at least curiosity of the researchers were that they started to think about this. That should I know about this? And so it was like we didn't expect this. We were surprised about the feedback and how positive it was. But it might be partly because we were there shadowing, and of course they don't. They are kind people, so they will. But I think at least most of the feedback was very honest.
Great, thank you so much. Unless you want to add anything else, we can proceed on to questions. There seem to be quite a few questions in the chat. Yeah. Okay, so Rachel Gray, this is really good. And is there a way to make this template available at all? Well, that's what we're aiming to do, to make this template and its functionality available in DMPonline. And there's a more specific question also, because of the way it's hosted. How can researchers edit the DMP during the course of a project? Well, this is hosted in REDCap. That's where the prototype is, but it will. The aim is to make it a DMPonline template in DMPonline available to everybody. Rachel, does that answer your question?
Yeah, why we did it with REDCap was that it was only so that we can test the content and the questions before we implement this with DMPonline. But because DMPonline didn't have the functionalities yet, so that we could build up this kind of questionnaire type of template. That's why we used the tool that we have for questionnaires, which is REDCap. So that's why because we are very limited time for this project, we needed to test the template in a different tool, which we already had at the university, which is REDCap. So that's why it's there. But it has been very easy to use, and it's so easy that when you doesn't need to register, but you can you get the code to your DMP and it will be in REDCap, so that you can, if you want to edit it, you can always go back and edit it and download the next version if you need to. So it's not something that you only use once, but you can continue using it, and we will have a REDCap database where this information will be stored.
Okay, thanks, Maria-Lisa. This should also answer Yasmin's question. If I understand correctly, this is completely done using REDCap. How does this relate to DMPonline? As Maria-Lisa explained, they had to do it in REDCap for now because they needed it for this summer. And we didn't have the capacity to build it before the summer, but we're planning to build it as a template with all the functionalities that Eemeli described in DMPonline. I'm moving on to Yasmin. If you feel your question isn't answered, please prod me. Lindsay Myers, how does this fit with, for example, ethical review or completing a DPIA? Is this information sent to relevant parties so researchers don't need to complete the same information again? Can I clarify something? This is the template that DMP Tooling needed, but it will be in DMPonline will be a template, an editable template, so you can add whatever you want to it, right? The questions that you need as an institution. Does that answer your question, Lindsay? So you wouldn't have to stick to the questions that DMP Tooling used. It will be a fully editable template.
Yeah, and for our processes, so it's planned so that we have a project management database of the university where we collect all the important documents of the research project, and data from REDCap will be transferred to this, it's called My Research database. And My Research is also used by the ethical board, so that after you have created DMPV for your project with REDCap, the data will be transferred to My Research, and when you are applying an ethical approval, then you can use the same information just by linking it to your application. So yeah, we have this kind of data warehouse system for research administration stuff. So yeah, but it's we don't use DMPonline for that, but separate database system.
Okay.
And that's the plan with the DMP tool application as well, so that we are going to integrate it to the university project research project database, and so we will transfer the data from DMPonline as well to that organization and database. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maria-Lisa. There is a question from Teresa Kisselbach. The answering options in form of checkboxes are a very nice feature. It is a great feature that researchers can upload their research plan. What happens with it when the data management plan is exported? Will the research plan be exported to and added as an appendix? I think this depends upon organizational procedures, really. As Maria-Lisa said, they upload them to a local database. It depends what you do, Teresa, at what your procedures, organizational procedures are. What do you currently do, if you don't mind me asking, with your DMPs? Do you store them on DMPonline? Do you ask your researchers to download them and put them somewhere else? Feel free to comment or just switch on your microphone and answer.
Can I say something? Sorry, Marta, one of the developers. Currently one of the things that we tend to do in the download, as you well know, is that we give the options to add bits to your download if you need to. So this would be probably, if we're uploading data, we can probably put a tick box saying I want to download the attachments, or I don't want to download the attachments, and that means you can get the whole data management plan with an annex to it or not. So that is something that we can discuss and we can definitely add, so we are not forcing everyone to get all the information. So I hope that kind of makes it a little bit clear. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, it's all right, Marta. Thanks.
Yeah,
I clarified a few things. Yeah.
In our process, the project plan is only there for reviewer, for the DMP reviewing process. And when you upload the DMP, it comes only the DMP, not the project plan. It's not attached there, but when you send or complete the DMP template, it sends automatically a review request to the data support of the university, and it goes to our ticketing system, and the person who goes through the ticket can get the links to the REDCap database, where you can find the attachment, the project plan, and DMP, and it's so much easier to review a DMP with the project plan. So it's something that you just need. Just we ask it only for the reviewing process, DMP reviewing process, and it's only used for that. So we don't include it to the uploaded DMP, because we presume that research funder already got the project plan, but the reviewer is the one who hasn't seen it. So yeah.
Thanks, Maria-Liisa. There are some more questions about whether this template would be available on DMPonline. There's a bit of confusion between REDCap and DMPonline, so I won't answer those because I feel I've already answered them. So this template will be available on DMPonline. But I'll move on to Carl Dixon's questions. A question it's how do you envisage the template working in the case of a funded project? Would you expect the researcher to complete the dynamic template and also the funded template in the funder, if the funder mandates a specific version? Feel free to go ahead, either Maria-Liisa or...
There are no funders who require certain template that we use, really. EU doesn't require any specific template to be used. And when we created this one, we discussed with the biggest Finnish funder, that what do they think that if we are going to use this, and we agreeing with them before we start to use this. So we get the Finnish research funder to approve our template, and that was important. But yeah, most of the there are nowadays NIH doesn't fund any EU projects anymore, so there is no problem with that. But yeah, so it's quite rare that funder really they provide the template, but often you can use this one or your own template, and we recommend to use the own template, because with this own template we can also Eemeli did go quite fast through that, but we can give researchers options to choose our storage systems, and so that our IT systems are listed there, so they can easily pick the ones that they are going to use. So it's easier for researchers to choose when there are available options already there about storage and data transfer and other IT tools. Yes, but yeah, in our case it's easy because there are no funder requirements.
Okay, Maria.
Can I say something? So I think one thing that the way that this would affect the community is that it would be a new functionality with this type of template. So currently you can create your own template, or you can use a funder template to customize it. That's how currently the DMPonline works. So this would be like a new type of template that you could set up and then you can guide your researchers to say, we would like you to use that one, or depending on the situation. So in the case of Maria-Lisa, she came up with a list of her own questions. That is what they need. But it doesn't mean that you would not be able to create your own or adjust your own for the purpose. So I think that might be a bit of a confusion. It's not like we're going to impose or only present this type of template. You still have the old functionality, and you will have this new type of template, which is a survey style of template that would support the community. So that I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding in that, but I hope that makes it clear. That is just
right.
another type of template. Sorry.
Yeah, we should say more clearly that this is a template following Science Europe template recommendation. So there are similar questions, but there are only structured answer options. But it follows Science Europe template recommendations. There are similar topics covered. Yes.
It seems to me that perhaps everybody here could benefit with a further explanation of what we mean by nested structures, what we mean by branching logic. These are features that can be applied to any of your own templates. We're going to work on updating funder templates this summer. And it could be that in the long run, funder templates themselves will perhaps benefit from using this functionality, becoming a bit more dynamic. So at the moment, for example, you have conditional questions that remove questions. We introduce a functionality where conditional questions add questions. If you see what I mean, you select. I think Eemeli showed you one of the very first things he showed you. If you select a particular options, it adds other types of questions. So all of these functionalities could be applied to any template in the long run.
And one of the weak points of this kind of organizational tailored DMP template is that it's organizational tailored, and that's why it's not very good for big consortium with different kind of organizational services. And that's why we are creating. We have a national working group creating an consortium level general DMP template, where we are going to ask consortium level, policy level things that needs to be agreed on each organization taking part of the research consortium. And additionally, with that template, all the parties, all the organizations taking a part of consortium can fill out their own organizational DMPs. Like in some EU project, I have seen these kind of DMPs already, where there are these general level introduction type of part which complies all the organization taking part of the consortium, and then there are package level DMPs or organization DMP per each organization, more detailed about the data that is on responsibility of certain organization. So this is the direction that we are going to go in Finland, that universities and research organizations will have these kind of detailed, easy to fill out, help the template that helps researchers to identify the most important questions that they need to think when they manage sensitive data, or when they don't manage sensitive data, they can skip things. And then they need to have this consortium level, policy level decision. Is the data, when the data will be opened, and who is responsible of coordinating data management or something like that. But yeah, like Diana said, this is only for you here. The most important is the technical functionalities that we are just giving a demo about. Even the tool is different. We hope that in near future DMPonline also can provide these kind of functionalities that you can like add block of questions, like
like this one. I hope you're seeing
like
it.
Here.
Yeah, this is like we are asking information about different data sets to be open, stored for the verification or archived in the research project. But this kind of block of questions could be like, it could be used with anything, really. So it would be a great feature. We are using it for to ask things about different data sets, but it could be used for other kind of stuff also.
Okay, so I think we've answered most of your questions. I hope so. If not, we'll follow up after the meeting, because I think you could perhaps do with a bit more explanations as to what these technicalities are. The next talk, we'll have it at 12. So we have 10 minutes in between. It will be again about templates, and it will be adding global questions. And again, this is to do with customizing funder templates. Chris will explain this functionality to you in about 10 minutes. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So our last talk today is from Chris Gibson from the University of Manchester. He is also proposing a new feature for templates. And in this case, he's proposing the ability to edit multiple customize, better said, multiple templates by adding what he calls global organization questions. So I'll let him explain the further details. Hi, Chris. Thank you so much. Feel free to start.
Great. Hi, Diana. Hi, everyone. Thank you and good morning. Thanks for joining, and thanks you for the opportunity to speak. Now, I just check, are you seeing the right thing on the screen? I don't know if you're seeing the slides okay.
See it? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay. So let me just reorganize. Okay, so I've just got a few issues. Sorry, let me just work out my screen a little bit. Hopefully that's okay now. Okay, thanks for your patience. This presentation aims to explain how organisation questions can help us improve support for researchers, gain new insights into their data management practices, and do this in a way that's efficient for researchers and research support teams. I'll start with a proposal and define what we mean by organisation questions and the problem we're trying to solve. From there, I'll walk through the proposed solution, along with the key benefits and opportunities. We'll then look at a case study to illustrate how organisation questions can be applied, including DMP processes and a data registry, before highlighting the benefits that have been realised. And I'll close with a short summary, and then we can open up for questions and discussion. So, with that in mind, let's begin with the proposal. What are organisation questions? Well, here I'm talking about the questions that an organisation asks its own researchers for its own internal needs. The key idea is that these questions are not primarily designed for funders or external reporting. They are there to help the organisation understand what support is needed and how research activity can be managed well. It probably helps to separate internal use from internal purposes. Internal use is about day-to-day operational efficiency, for example, streamlining workflows. Internal purposes are broader and more strategic, such as delivering targeted support or developing new services. So the key point is that the same information from organisation questions can help with both immediate operations and with longer-term planning. And that's very different from the questions that an external funder includes in a DMP template, because those are asked to meet the funder's requirements rather than the organisation's own internal priorities. So to help visualise how organisation questions can be delivered, we prefix all our DMP templates with what we call our Manchester Data Management Outline section. And this asks 16 mostly multiple choice questions with some optional free text boxes in case researchers want to add more information. I'll come back to that slide and explain more in the case study. So what's the problem? Well, there's my problem statement. It's not possible to clearly and consistently present organisation questions to researchers and for researchers to access those questions with a single mouse click across all funder and organisation created templates. This problem is made worse by increased use of multi-phase DMPs by some funders. For example, in the UK, 6 major funders that specify multi-phase DMPs now include AHRC, BBSRC, MRC, NERC, STFC and UKRI. To illustrate, look at the wireframes of a single-phase DMP in Figure 1 and a multi-phase DMP in Figure 2. The relevant DMP phases are coloured in blue and the DMP sections are coloured in orange. And you can see in figures 1A and 2A that when a researcher accesses a DMP, it's not clear to them if the DMP includes organisation questions. Looking now at figures 1B and 2B, you can see that the researcher needs to make an extra mouse click to select the relevant phase before they are able to identify and then access the section that contains the organisation questions. The situation is worse for multi-phase DMPs because it's not clear to researchers which phase might contain the organisation questions. And this is not efficient or intuitive for researchers, and it reduces response rates to organisation questions. And in turn, lower response rates reduce an organisation's insights into their own researchers' data management activities, and that weakens the support that organisations can deliver to their researchers. To try and solve the problem, my first idea was to use DMP phases for delivering organisation questions, and the wireframes in figures 3 and 4 help to visualize. You can see that this would clearly and consistently present organisation questions, which would also become accessible to researchers with a single click. Unfortunately, this is not possible because organisations do not have permissions to add phases to funder templates. They can only add phases to their own templates that they've created in-house. And even if organisations did have permission to add phases to funder templates, it's important to note this would not be an efficient solution because it would trigger 2 related problems, which I'll outline in the next slides. First, we know from our own experience that if we want to update our organisation questions or related guidance, then we must do this manually for every DMP template. So instead of updating just one instance of organisation questions, we have to update many instances. So one update for every template that we maintain. And for context, I see many UK universities, they often maintain between 10 and 20 templates, and some maintain more than 30. So this approach would not be efficient, as it's time consuming to update those many templates. And also repeating a manual task many times increases the risk of human errors. Second, we know from our own experience that if there is a system update to a funder template, then local customizations that we've made don't display for researchers until we manually publish the changes. So if a researcher creates a DMP after the funder template has been updated and before we publish the changes, then their DMP will not include our organisation questions. At the moment, to minimise the risk of that happening, we regularly check funder templates for updates, and then when we publish changes for an updated template, we also have a process for checking new DMPs that have been created from that template so that we can identify any examples that don't include our own organisation questions, and then we follow up with the relevant researchers. So again, this approach would not be efficient. It's time consuming to monitor funder templates and check for DMPs without the organisation questions. To resolve these issues, the proposed solution is to introduce a new and optional global organisation questions feature. Organisations can switch the feature on or off depending on whether they need it, which keeps the setup flexible rather than adding complexity for everyone. When the feature is enabled, it appears to researchers in a familiar way, similar to phases in DMP templates, so the experience should feel intuitive. But importantly, the feature will be delivered separately and independently from DMP templates. It also gives organisations the ability to create and edit their own organisation questions with guidance using the same maintenance approach that they already use for DMP templates. This slide outlines the key benefits of this approach in two main areas. First, it improves the user experience for researchers by giving them clear, consistent, one-click access to organisation questions. That should make the process more straightforward, increase response rates to those questions, and ultimately help organisations provide better support to researchers. Second, it increases efficiencies for research support teams. Instead of maintaining the same organisation questions in multiple DMP templates, teams only need to update a single source. It also means that organisation questions will not be disrupted when funder templates are updated, and that reduces maintenance effort and improves consistency over time. The organisation questions feature also opens a real opportunity to collect useful information at key points across the research lifecycle, so support can be more targeted and decisions can be more informed. By asking questions before a project begins, we can better understand researcher needs early to improve and shape our support and services around them. Then, by asking questions again at the end of a project, we can capture what matters for the future of the data, including legal, ethical, and compliance considerations, as well as retention and reuse potential. And taken together, that gives us a stronger basis for supporting researchers now and helping data owners, custodians, and stewards make better long-term decisions that leads to better support, better governance, and better long-term outcomes. Let me now explain why organisation questions are so valuable for us at Manchester how we deliver them, and how we use the information that researchers provide. So at Manchester, we introduced organisation questions when we began using DMPonline in 2018. And the aim was a practical one, to make our processes more useful for researchers and more effective for the team supporting them. And to do that, we worked with colleagues across the university, including the library, the Information Governance Office, Ethics and Research IT. And we quickly saw that researchers were often being asked for similar information in different places. And what stood out to us was that the DMP is the one process that cuts across the whole institution and is relevant to all research projects. So that gave us an opportunity to design something more joined up. First, to reduce duplication, so researchers don't have to keep re-entering the same information. And second, to capture the information we need to offer timely support and improve our services over time. And the result was our Manchester Data Management Outline, or our outline section for short, which sits right at the front of every DMP template. So there are 16 organisation questions, mostly multiple choice, with a few optional free text fields where extra content might be helpful. Placing the outline first gives researchers a standard starting point, whatever template they're using, and it also gives us an early picture of key issues such as governance, storage, preservation, confidentiality, and personal data. We then use those responses in two ways. First, they form the basis of our data registry, which over time gives us a much richer view of the university's research data landscape. Second, they help us work more proactively by providing timely feedback to researchers and, where needed, triggering support from the right specialist teams. So the same set of questions helps us to support individual projects in the moment, while also generating evidence that strengthens our services more strategically over time. And with that in mind, I'll show you now how this works in practice through our DMP processes. The new process starts when a researcher creates a DMP, and using the DMPonline API, we identify all Manchester plans created in the previous 24 hours. And the top green box there, MDMO check. Within one working day, we check the researchers' responses to the outline section, record those responses, and then send researchers a feedback email with practical advice based on what they have told us. That advice is tailored, but it's also designed to be efficient. Depending on the responses, it may cover storage, retention, risk management, confidential data, data protection, export controls, ethics, next steps, and routes to further support. And to make that workable at scale, we have developed a set of standardized response pathways that allow us to send consistent but tailored guidance for different combinations of answers. And if a newly created DMP does not contain enough information for us to review the outline properly, we follow up rather than leave it there. We check the plan again after 2 weeks, and if the outline has been completed by then, we send feedback in the usual way. If it's still incomplete, we contact the researcher with a reminder, point them to relevant guidance, and offer one-to-one support. So even where the outline is not fully completed at the first attempt, the process still creates an opportunity to support the researcher. And where further input is needed, you can see that we also triggered referrals to the relevant specialist teams. We keep that process transparent by copying the feedback email to the teams that may need to be involved, so they can review the DMP and decide whether more detailed advice is needed. Importantly, those referral triggers are not defined by us alone. They are agreed with the partner teams themselves. So, for example, issues around personal data or highly confidential data can trigger input from the Information Governance Office. Large storage requirements can trigger input from Research IT, and highly sensitive data can trigger a referral to the Highly Restricted Data Service. And alongside the outline check, you can see the other green boxes below. Researchers can also request a full DMP review through DMPonline's feedback function, and we return that within 10 working days. And DMPs may also be shared into other university processes where needed. For example, to support ethics review, information governance, contracts, or research IT discussions. So what this slide shows is not just a review workflow, but a joined up support model, one that combines early triage, tailored guidance, targeted referrals, and optional in-depth review. Now, when we carry out the outline checks, we record researchers' responses to the multiple choice questions. In effect, that means the outline is also functioning as a daily survey of newly planned research projects. And over time, those responses build what we call our data registry. That gives us a much stronger evidence base for service work. We can interrogate the registry to understand the university's research data assets, identify patterns in researcher behaviour, and spot where additional support or new services may be needed. So this is not just data collection for its own sake, it's information that we use to make support more targeted and more strategic. For example, the registry can help us identify projects working with sensitive data, so colleagues in information governance can offer targeted support at the right point. It can also show which storage solutions researchers are using across different schools, which helps us tailor advocacy and guidance around preferred institutional options. And because the registry includes dates, we can also look at change over time and assess whether communications or interventions are having an effect. And the registry is also useful for service planning at a broader level. For instance, our research IT colleagues have used the data to help evidence the likely demand for a data safe haven as part of a business case for investment. So taken together, the registry helps us move from individual project support to institution level insight. And that is where organisation questions can become especially powerful. So this is how Manchester delivers organisation questions, and the value for us has been very practical. The details, of course, will vary from one institution to another because each organisation has its own priorities and support model. But in our case, the main benefit is that the process allows us to deliver timely, tailored and joined up support for researchers at large scale. From the researcher's perspective, the support is timely because feedback from the outline check usually arrives within 1 working day of the DMP being created. It's tailored because the guidance depends on researchers' responses. And it's joined up because where needed, the process brings in the right specialist teams using referral criteria that they have defined themselves. And from the university's perspective, scale matters. Manchester researchers create well over 2,000 DMPs each year, so it would not be realistic for every specialist team to review every plan in depth. What the outline organisation questions gives us instead is a risk-based early warning system, a way to identify which projects are more likely to need additional support and to target specialist input where it will make the most difference. That doesn't replace full DMP reviews. We still carry out more than 400 full reviews each year, so that's roughly 1 in 5 of Manchester DMPs. And DMPonline's feedback and commenting features help make that process more efficient and transparent. But the combination of early triage and optional in-depth review means we can use our limited capacity much more effectively. And perhaps just as importantly, this approach helps demonstrate to researchers that DMPs are not simply a tick box exercise. When they receive useful guidance, practical next steps, and access to the right support, they can see a clear benefit from completing the plan. And that has real advocacy value because it helps build a more positive and a more credible culture around data management planning. So, to summarise, the proposal is to introduce an optional global organisation questions feature in DMPonline, so that institutions can collect information that matters to them at key points in the research lifecycle. For example, before a project starts and again at the end. And the purpose is not to add complexity, but to make it easier for organisations to understand researcher needs, provide the right support, and use DMPs more effectively as part of their wider research support ecosystem. For researchers, the benefit is clearer and more consistent experience. Organisation questions can be presented in a way that's easier to find, easier to complete, and more obviously relevant. And for research support teams, the benefit is efficiency and resilience. Instead of maintaining the same questions across multiple templates, they can manage just one shared set, and those questions are not vulnerable to disruption when funded templates change. And the Manchester case study is just one example of how this could work in practice. Different organisations would use the feature in different ways, depending on their own context and priorities. And that's why the optional nature of the feature matters. If organisation questions are useful, they can be switched on. If not, existing ways of working do not need to change. But where they are used, they create real potential to improve support for researchers through both individual responses and the longer-term insight that's gained from their cumulative responses. So with that in mind, I'd be very interested in any questions or reflections. Thanks very much for listening. And if I can just finish off, I've thrown in a few prompts on the slide. I would just say from our perspective at Manchester, questions 1, 2, 3, and 5, our answer would be yes. And for question 4, at this point, we'd probably prefer to apply this feature across all templates, but I appreciate it could be different for others. Thanks again for listening, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Chris. This is really useful. I'll start by asking, what would the end user see?
So the end user would see every DMP template with the organisations appearing as phases do at the moment, so the tabs at the top of the DMP screen. If the organisation chooses not to use the feature, then the DMP templates will look as they do now. If they do decide to use the feature, then if they switch on the feature for the pre-project questions, that would occur before the relevant DMP phases, and if they decide to switch on the project end questions, then they would appear at the end of the set of the tabs or phases. Hope that makes sense.
To me, it makes sense. I think to put it simply, this arose out of the need for customizing templates. Is that correct?
Sorry, say it again.
So this feature you're asking for is arose out of the need of customizing funder templates, as well as standardization, but customizing funder templates. You felt that every template, you had to assign the same question to every single funder template again and again manually.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good point. And actually it would apply across, well, I'm suggesting, depends how people answer question 4 on the slide there. They would apply across all DMP templates, both the funder templates and any internal templates that you might also maintain. Sorry, I think I stopped sharing, so I must put that slide back up again. Apologies, hopefully you can see that again now.
Yes, we can see that again. So there are some questions already in the chat, but the first question is, would other organizations be interested in this feature? I assume yes, because all organizations have to customize templates somehow, but I don't know to what extent. Would you be unhappy to add more phases to a template, for example? Raise your hand if you'd like to chat. Okay, I'll assume you need to think a little bit about this. So I assume that for the second questions with 2 sets of organization questions, pre and post project, interest you. Again, I assume you'll need time to think about that, unless you want to answer now. We'll put all of these questions on the Google document, and you can add your thoughts there. Again, as we mentioned earlier, these features will be, you'll be able to switch these features on or off, so it's not mandatory for anybody to use them. And as Chris mentioned, if the feature is switched on, then any questions you add and you want to apply to all the funder templates, for example, will be visible across the DMP templates as a phase. Okay, I'm going to switch. I'm going to switch to I think there's an interesting question from Kirsten Radford. I'm very interested in the potential. Could making the project details configurable by institution achieve the same goal? Functionality to add new questions for institutions who want them. Might this be less confusing for the researcher who has to navigate between phases? Chris, you go ahead if you want to answer this.
I think my immediate thought on that was that organisation questions, from our experience, are so important to helping us to help the researcher, that they really deserve, and part of the point of basically we think they're important enough that they deserve to have their own tabs. We would, from our side, prefer that a researcher doesn't have to make one click into something to then go and find that actually the organisation questions even exist. We want them to be absolutely upfront in the template with all the phases or tabs at the top of the screen, so that it's immediately apparent that organisation questions are there. And then I guess it's just a discussion about where along that series of tabs you want those questions to appear. So I take the point that there's definitely various ways that they could be implemented, but from our side, I'd like to make the case that organisation questions deserve their own tab or phase. Yeah, thanks for the interest. Thanks. Good question.
Yeah, I agree. I think there would be too many questions to add in the project details. Even if you try and keep the number of pre and post project questions restricted, putting them in project plan might be a bit too confusing for the user. As Chris mentioned, this is also about standardizing procedures. Pre-project and post-project procedures is not just a matter of adding some questions. We have had in the past requests to perhaps make some aspects of the project details tab editable. We will look into that, and I can follow up with you on this, Kirsten. But I don't think adding data management plan template questions in the project details is really the right place to add information. Others may disagree with me.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I think that one thing that is quite a clear thing from Manchester is that UK has many funder templates, which means there are certain questions that are never asked by funders, and it's easier as an organization to ask those questions and get that feedback. It might not come across in Europe the same way. Looking at Horizon 2020, you know, it has already 3 phases in there, and you kind of think that they'll be addressed. I think the functionality here that is in question is how useful it would be to have a common set of questions being passed on from all templates or selection of templates that you could use, instead of having constantly duplicating the data and having to re-enter the data. And I think that is the key feature, is avoid the duplication of the data, those questions. As I said, UK has 9 main funders, which means there's lots of templates playing around in, and it would be a very time consuming. The location at the moment, it is possible to customize a funder template by adding a section with your own questions. So that is already a functionality that DMPonline has. This would be an additional functionality that would allow to set the same questions across all templates. So it's almost like you're no longer doing a vertical entering, but a horizontal entrance in the actual selection of templates. So I think, Chris, does that kind of explains the functionality that you're looking into introducing?
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Marta. That really summarizes it, explains things far more clearly. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Marta. There are some questions coming, and we have to get through them. Is the feedback that is sent as a result of the outline check automated, partially automated, or manual by support staff?
Okay, good question, thanks. So it's part automated. We always have a human being looking at the responses, because sometimes maybe researchers are in a hurry, or maybe their understanding or interpretation isn't quite what we think. So whoever looks at the responses, it can sometimes be very clear, for example, from the title of a DMP, that it's clearly going to be working with personal data, and probably special category personal data even. But a researcher response, for example, about a question about data protection, might give a response that perhaps doesn't seem to reflect that. And so the human can, in those few instances, perhaps quickly look at other responses within the data management plan and actually make a value judgment. Researchers don't always, even if you give them lots and lots of guidance, there's no guarantee they'll always read the guidance. So it's good to have that human check. But the way that we do it, we have standard pathways. So we have many use cases so that we can try and standardize responses and make that easier. And because we have those standardized pathways, we are now able to start automating our responses. So when we record the researcher responses, we put them into a system, and then at the end the system comes back and it tells us, well, actually this is the response that we need to deliver, response number 7, for example, and there's the standard template that we send off. And so it's part automated in that way that whoever does the checks does not need to make a decision about which is the correct template response. The system that we have does that for them based on the answers that go in. And we are now starting to work a little bit with AI. And the idea is, rather than having to copy and paste those template responses into the emails for researchers, that actually that aspect of the work can be automated as well. So that is something that's under development right now. So it's part automated now, and we're hoping that it's going to be even more automated perhaps in a month or two's time. Yeah, good question.
Great, thank you very much. Joy made a nice little comment. I really like the post-project data registry, actual versus planned outputs, very useful. Yeah, so we already, if you remember, we already have research outputs, a research outputs feature, which is also automated. It's got machine actionability. So Jane Grogan, so interesting presentation. Chris, thank you. From a library perspective, helpful to understand how many people have admin access to DMPonline at the University of Manchester across departments. If several, does that throw up any triaging, handling issues?
So there are, yeah, in total, I would say that we have, and we always keep this under review as part of cybersecurity, only, give minimal access, only those people that really need it. But across the various teams in the university, the library, information governance, ethics, research, IT, etc., I would say probably just over 20 people have admin access at Manchester. But the way that we work with triaging, it's really only the library team that needs access. So there are 3 librarians and 1 specialist who assists us, so that's 4 people. And they're the ones that will do the outline checks, who will do the full DMP reviews, and all of the other 15 or 20 people, they only need access in case there is a referral to their teams. So, for example, a referral is needed, there's a data protection issue potentially, so we copy in the feedback email for the researcher to the information governance office, and then the relevant colleague in information governance can click on the link to the DMP, have a look at it, and decide whether or not an intervention is needed. So that's how it works for us. I hope that's clear, but ask me another question if it's not. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Anna Collins. I think having multiple sets of organization questions could be valuable, but whether these would be pre-project and post-project, I'm less sure. My concern is that a lot of researchers would ignore the post-project questions. I'll let Chris answer that because I have a comment about that too. So Chris, you go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I have to say it's part of a proposal from our side that we're looking forwards. We're looking at the problems that come in. We at the moment have the pre-project questions, and we know that they are very successful. They have helped us, not just individual researchers, but also making service decisions in the wider context. which I hope came across in the presentation. The post-project questions is something that we would like to be able to do, hence it's part of our proposal. We get good uptake from the pre-questions, and we do, as part of our processes, give the researchers a nudge. But yes, a good point raised about how do you encourage researchers at the end of a project, where their focus might be on writing publications and all sorts of other important tasks to close it off. My thinking is, off the top of my head, a mix of carrot and stick. We always prefer the carrot. So I think there are various ways that we can remind or nudge the researcher. It could be because we record the dates of projects when they come to a close, that we could use that information to send a reminder to the researcher. It also depends on which current research information system you're using. At Manchester, we happen to use Pure, and you could use a feature in there called milestones, which is a way of the research information system sending timely nudges, and there is no reason why it couldn't be set at when the project end date comes up, that an automated email is then sent to the researcher. So those are ways of perhaps reminding and encouraging researchers. Then ultimately, if they don't do that, in terms of mandating things, it's something that you might consider as part of a policy. We mandate data management plans as part of our policy. We might choose to mandate, for example, the post-project questions. Yeah, I'll think more of other ways other than policy. You know, it might be that as part of project closure, that if something is needed by the researcher to close things down, we could work it into the process that can only happen and be signed off if they have completed the post-project questions. So those are a few ideas off the top of my head, and any further suggestions, very gratefully received. Thanks again, great questions.
Yeah, I'll take one more because we're running late on a follow-up answering those separately, outstanding questions separately, I mean. So Matthias, for example, Matthias Westerlund, thank you for a very interesting presentation. A question for Chris. Do you fetch responses to the questions through the web portal only, or have you tried extracting and collecting responses in a more automated fashion, e.g. through the API? I can answer that. So we can extract answers to questions via the API. I don't think that's just down to, that's a technicality related to the tool, not down to Chris necessarily. Go ahead, Chris.
If I can just add, if it's possible to design the DMPonline API so that you can interrogate it for your own, for responses to your own organizational questions, then that would be a fabulous way to automate the process 100%.
All right.
That, you know, at the moment, the only reason that we really want that manual input is just for those few cases where we want to double check that researchers are answering questions in the right way. We're being risk averse in that sense. But if it was possible to design the API, then that would be something we'd be very interested in. Yes, please.
We'll have to look into that.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
more jobs,
we'll
sorry.
have to add that to our to-do list. So the last question, I'll just put it here. Would you like to get involved in the development process? So, you know, for nice little suggestions like this, please add your names in the chat so that we can take notes and follow up with you. So if you like to get involved in shaping up these features and writing up, contributing to writing up the feature specification, please add your names here in the chat so that we don't lose track of them. Okay. Thank you so much, Chris. For a very, very quick wrap up, I'm just going to say that I'm going to end with thanking Richard from TU Delft, Eemeli, Anttila, and Maria-Liisa Kusniemi from University of Helsinki, and Chris Gibson from the University of Manchester for putting forward these ideas for great new features. I hope you all enjoyed their presentations. I certainly did. So thank you to all who have attended today's meeting, and you have contributed very interesting questions. Please get back in touch with us if you're interested in working on these features. Typically, what we would do is we would sit down and write the feature specification. We'll send it to you. What do you think? We might even have a one-off meeting where you can discuss, you know, what are the tweaks we can make to it. So I suggest you get involved. We will circulate notes of the meeting, including answers to questions that we didn't get around to. And we'll also circulate a video recording. We are aware that we owe you the videos for last year's community event. We're still working on that. I'm really sorry about that for the delay. We will follow up with those who said they would be interested. I know that we've already had interest expressed for Richard Grimes's feature. And the next meeting, it will be a user group, our more informal, shorter meetings. The user group is on 8th of September at 10:30 BST. And we'll see you then. Until then, have a lovely summer. Thank you so much for taking part today.